Hi there. I'm so glad you're here. If you're here, you probably have a protective parent who thought maybe this video would be helpful. So, a little bit about me. I am a researcher and I've been an advocate against any kind of coercive control since the age of 19, and I'm a protective mom. I have two children who were coercively controlled. So, I've done a lot of research about what happens to children and the experiences of living in a household with a coercive controller. It's not easy. It's really difficult. And I want you to know first and foremost that you are not alone. Sad, but it happens a lot. It happens way more than it should. And second of all, I want you to know that this is never, ever your fault. So there's three things I want to cover in this short video. One is, what is coercive control? Two, like, who are coercive controllers? And three, what happens to us when we're coercively controlled? So one, what is coercive control? Simple, really. It's when someone exerts power over us. And they do this in a variety of ways. So power over us, what does that mean? It could be the bully on the playground. It could be a coworker who, you know, doesn't help you with the work and puts you down. It can be certainly someone in your family, right? And so it can be a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Lots of different ways it shows up in our life. I think it's the foundation of all oppression, including racism and classism, when people treat people differently because of maybe how much money they have or how much money they don't have. That's classism. So there's a variety of ways that it shows up. Sexism, when we treat people differently based on their sexual identity. That why is it that we do that? It's typically because someone is trying, or a group of people are trying to have power over us, okay? So that's coercive control. It shows up a lot, unfortunately, in relationships. And part of that is the society we live in. We live in a society where there's a belief, an old-fashioned belief, but it's been around forever, that maybe one gender or one person should have power over another. And that's not to say that all coercive controllers, by the way, are men. It's not true. But the belief system that one person should have power over another certainly makes it much easier for men to be in that position. So, plus we live in a world where the people who have the most power in general are men. This doesn't mean all men again. And by the way, not all men are bad. I've got a great dad and two brothers. Amazing, amazing son. It's not all men. Okay. So that's coercive control. Who are coercive controllers? Well, they're people who probably grew up in a family where they weren't loved unconditionally. They really didn't get positive regard. They were made to feel a lot of shame. And the love they received wasn't authentic, meaning wasn't real. And so what did they do? The way to cope with that, sometimes when we think about the brain, the way to cope with that was to kind of create a mask, a false sense of self out there in the world so that they could be liked by others, even though they were holding on to all of this shame. They don't really like themselves at all. So what they end up doing is exerting this power over others, and oftentimes not in a overt way. It's not like, oh, you can't go out, or I mean, it could be, or you have to give me all your money. Could be, but it also can be just much more, we call it insidious, like secretive, like, maybe just making someone feel badly if they go out with their friends, or making someone hand over like all of their money to one account instead of maybe to a mutual account, right? So there's a lot of different ways it can show up. But oftentimes what we know about coercive controllers is they get worse when there's a separation. When they feel they've lost control, they get worse. And that is typically when we see situations like family court get involved, because Then there's custody issues, right? So let's just say that your mom is a protective mom and she decided to leave the coercive controller, who again really has trouble loving authentically, doesn't really like themselves. So what they do is they project anything bad. They might call your mom a cheater, even though they're the cheater, right? Or they might call your mom manipulative, even though they're manipulative. And maybe sometimes your mom has gotten really, really angry, and that happens after a while when we've been kind of trapped and walking on eggshells all the time. So they might have done all of these things, but then when a separation happens, they're really, really upset about losing control. They're going to exert more control. That's what they do. So it's really painful for children. Really painful to watch this, to have been living in it in the home before the separation, to know there was something not right. I'm asking you to think about that gut feeling you've had when things just did not feel right. Okay? That's not wrong. The gut feeling is not wrong. So that's how coercive controllers, that's who they are. And so what happens is they don't, again, love authentically. Never a child's fault. But they almost use the child as a weapon to hurt the other parent, because this way they can control the other parent through the children. So again, never ever your fault, but it's so painful for you, and it puts you in a trap. Puts you in a trap. So what does this mean? How do we react to this? Well, oftentimes our brain is so stressed out, so stressed out. And the thing is a lot of people don't even notice this is happening, right? It's happening to you, but do you even notice it's happening? Do you even know what's really going on? Especially when children are much younger, they don't even really recognize it. How could they? They're children, right? And so what happens is we do get dysregulated. I want you to think about like a wolf in a den with you. What's your response? You've got to save yourself, right? So sometimes you become dysregulated and angry and reactive. You're just so, well, first of all, feeling unsafe, but second of all, so angry about it. So angry about it. It makes perfect sense that you would be that angry. And so sometimes that anger comes out onto the coercive controller, the wolf, and other times it might even come out to maybe a therapist or the protective parent, whoever your protective parent is. It might come out onto them because finally you can let go of all of that stress in your body, finally. And so who are you going to let it out on? You might let it out at school with somebody at school. You might let it out with a partner. If you're old enough to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you might let it out on your parent, protective parent, because again, it's this feeling of where am I safe? I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted. Which brings me to a fourth point that I actually didn't say I was going to discuss, but I think it's important. This is a significant betrayal. To realize that a parent is not who you expect them to be. And so there might be some really fabulous memories, some really great memories, and we can hold on to those memories. I always say we hold on to them and we put them in a box. We can hold on to them, or we may choose to throw them away. But if you decide to hold on to them, that's okay. But knowing that those memories come, but then there's always going to be this pattern. And that's the thing about coercive control. It's a pattern of behavior. It's not just a one-time deal. See, the difference between you and me and coercive controllers is if I do something wrong and you tell me, I'm first of all going to be really sorry. And second of all, I'm going to really try to change. And I'm not going to accuse you of it. That's something we call DARVO. When people deny something, then they attack and reverse. Like they did something wrong and they reverse it onto us. That's called DARVO. It's really what coercive controllers love to do. They never take responsibility, or if they do, they take a little bit of responsibility, but they certainly don't do it over the long term. So what do? They like to blame us. They probably blamed your protective parent a lot. And your protective parent might have also been reactive some of the time. because they just were overwhelmed with how difficult this has all been for them. But no matter what, they love you. And they love you unconditionally with an authentic love. And if you have that, that's gold. So this is all so challenging. Again, never your fault. It's a huge betrayal. You're not alone. And there's a world of people who are on your side, supporting you.